All right, 4. As far as I know, this is as done as I can get it for now. There's a few little things I could touch up or tweak on, but oh, on the inside, I still have these. That's a little like a little handle or lever or something that sticks out of the hole here. And actually, this one goes in. Let me see if I can get a view of that. This one goes in right down like that. And I'm not sure if it's best to put that in now or later. So I may wait until I actually start fitting this and make my decision for that to see if it's better to put that in now or later. So I'm not quite sure about that. Also, on the inside, that's how they tell you to do it, but it just doesn't look finished. I'm just not happy with that. So what I did was I made this. It's just a strip of styrene with leather wrapped around it. And I made this, again, styrene with leather wrapped around it. So this will go right in here. Let me kind of just get that clamped in so you can see what that does. And let me see, just put a clamp here. That clamp has a piece of tape on it so it doesn't hurt the leather. And we'll put one right over here. All right, so that leather just kind of finishes that off back there and trims that up. I don't know if the real car has that or not, but I think it looks better. I mean, it's not really even going to be seen at all, really. And then this piece just sets back in here like that. Again, I don't think I can get a good view with the camera, but that just sets in here like that. Just kind of trims all that out, makes it look a lot better. Now, there's a screw that goes up through here to hold that little hook thing on. There's another screw that goes down from the top here and down once the body gets secured onto the interior tub, once it all goes onto the chassis. So that piece has 2 little holes to make room for the screws. So it'll set in there nice and flat. Again, like I said, I don't know how realistic that is, but I just think it finishes up the interior a little bit better. I think it looks a little bit nicer. So again, that can't go on till the body's on, and this piece I could glue that on now if I wanted. I'll do it later, just so you don't have to watch me glue that in. So again, the body is done-ish enough. Let me put this away and bring out the next piece that we need to start working on. Okay, here's the chassis. So it's been a long time since I've worked on this. Kind of nice to have this back out again. I don't remember, what we talked about last time we had this. There are a few things that we need to finish here, and then we can start putting the interior tub on with the seats and then the body over top of that. So what we need to do is right down here. Let me see if I can zoom into there and focus maybe. All right, there's supposed to be a cable that wraps around that pulley. It goes from a little piece here around that pulley and back to another piece here. Those get locked down with nuts. Right now those are loose. I need to figure out where that end goes. And what else? There's issues with the, man, I can't even fit that in here. Too much stuff. There's issues with the hoses right up here. They don't fit. That one's not even attached, so I'm going to have to do something here. I could do that after the body goes on, but I'll do it now. And I think that's about it. I got to go through the instructions from the beginning, just make sure there's nothing else I'm missing here. But I think what I want to tackle first is the cable around here, because that's kind of been bugging me for a while. So let me get my stuff, let me get set up for this, and I'll get back with you here in just a second. Okay, so like I said, the next thing I want to do is put in these cables right here, and that cable wraps around a pulley from the park brake and back around and right to here. Now, I did it wrong, and I did it wrong on purpose, and before I show you how I did it, and I went ahead and did it because it's such small work and I had to have my head down in there, and I don't think you would have been able to really see me do anything, but I'll show you what it looks like here in a second. The intended purpose is when you pull the park brake, it'll pull those cables, which will pull those brackets. Let me see if I can focus that better. So you pull the park brake, it pulls the cables, it pulls those brackets, which rotates the rod, which pulls the cables here, which goes back to the brake mechanism. The problem with this is there's no spring to pull these back, to pull that back to normal. Now, there is a spring on the park brake handle to pull the park brake handle back to normal. So even if that did rotate here and pull those cables, this would just stay forward and nothing would pull it back. And chances are that wouldn't even happen because there's nothing locking those brackets onto the shaft except for those nuts, but those don't get that tight. So even if you did do it this way, probably what would happen is when you pulled the park brake, the cables would pull, these things would just slip on the shaft and go forward and just stay there, and now those cables would be slack. So either way, these cables would end up being slack. And even, like I said, if it did rotate this, these cables would also then be slack. So if you do it right, the first time you pull the park brake, it'd be wrong and the cables would be loose. So I decided to do it wrong and make the cables tight. So let me show you what I got going on here. Let me refocus down to here and see if I can zoom into that. Focus. All right. And plus, you'll notice that the hole the cables go in, it's not quite big enough. I mean, it's too late for me to go in now and widen it out because there's too much stuff in the way. But when you pull the park brake, which is up here, so notice what's happening is it's just flexing that cable. But these are not the cable, but that threaded rod here is just flexing that threaded rod. But the cables are staying tight. So again, if I would have done it the right way, and I had those pointing down, the first time somebody pulled the handle, it'd pull them up this way. They wouldn't return back, and those cables here would all be loose and slack. So again, I did it wrong on purpose. If you do it the right way, here's the handle right up here. Now there's a spring here. And it doesn't really line up that well. The geometry is off a little bit. The bottom line is, once all this is together, this will never get seen again. Unless you turn it upside down and look at the bottom. But even then, you'll never see this again. So, you know, I prefer to have things right. I prefer to have things work the right way. I suppose it would be possible to completely re-engineer this whole shaft here and rig up a spring back here to pull everything back. But I don't know. It's kind of like building a support structure for the fabric top. You know, where do you draw the line on what do you just leave as is, and where do you spend infinite hours making everything work perfectly fine? And plus, he's going to have this in a plexiglass case. Nobody's ever going to move this, and it's fine. I don't remember when I very first started these videos. I know I already had most of this built when I started the videos, a lot of it anyways. So I don't really remember what I talked about too much. But before I completely cover it up, I would just want to point out a few things. If you ever see photos of the undercarriage of the real car, which I only found one, they're not that easy to find, at least with my short 1-minute search. everything is like flat black. And, you know, the frame's flat black, the gas tank's flat black, everything's just flat black. Different shades of flat black, but still. I went with a few different colors just to kind of make it look better, even though it's not technically perfectly realistic. And I can't even remember the name of the color that I used for the frame here. It's I was looking for an old bottle of it last night and I couldn't find it anywhere, and I can't remember what the heck it's called. So hopefully I don't have to do any touch-up here, because I have no idea what kind of paint I used, because that was like over a year ago. These pieces here, this cross piece here and here, again, I don't remember if I talked about this before or not, but they were these plastic pieces, and they got kind of a slight curve. This one's not too bad, but this one's worse. It's got a slight curve to it. This is the one that goes here, and it's bent this way because the weight of the car is pushing on that. And it's fairly thin up in here. So I just recopied these pieces out of aluminum. I remade these out of aluminum. So this is aluminum, just aluminum block through here. This one's aluminum with an aluminum piece bolted to it here. I got that tip on one of the car model forums that I looked at well over a year ago. It's like car model or model cars something, I forget. But one of the model car forums where a few people are building these. And I did get that idea from there, so I'm not going to take credit for remaking those. The next thing I need to do is go to the front of the car. Like I said, I don't technically have to do this just yet, but I'm going to go to the front of the car. I'll reposition it so we can see things better. And I want to get those hoses fixed. I want to get those plugged in properly. And I mentioned this cable has to go somewhere. The instructions don't really show that much. Let me show you what the instructions show. As far as that cable goes, that's it right here. It shows it going through the bulkhead or through the firewall, but they never show the other side of that. They never show where it goes on the other side of that, so I've just left it long. I think it just needs to get clipped off here. So let me get my heat gun out. I'll fix the hoses up front on the radiator, and I'll clip that off. And I've been waiting. It just seems wrong to clip it off, but the instructions, again, they don't say where it goes. So yeah, so let me get those two things, and then we can start putting the tub and the seats in. All right, so the next thing I want to do is fix the hoses here, and this one doesn't even reach, and that one's off a bit. I thought about just getting longer hoses, but the angle still wouldn't look right. I thought about cutting those off and redoing them, but I think what I want to try to do is just use a heat gun and just slightly heat it here to kind of bend that out and up a little bit, and slightly heat it here and bend that out. And I don't want to burn anything else. So I've got this. It's a ceramic paper. It's a couple mils thick, and it tears pretty easy, but it's meant for heat deflection, reflection, whatever. So I'm just going to stick some of that in here, tear that a little bit thinner, and just get this on eBay. It's fairly cheap, and this is just left over from building my my forge. I've got a video on that somewhere on YouTube. I need to do more with that, but we'll just see if we can get this pulled in here. I'm going to go real easy with this heat gun, and might help if I plug it in. Hold on. All right, so I've got the temperature turned down pretty low, and I've got the fan turned down pretty low. And I'm going to use my finest tip here. This has a couple of settings, and I just turned it off, but it's cooling down now. But I did that before. I thought about, I was like putting another tube on, or another tip on it. All right, so hopefully I can just kind of pinpoint that right there. Turn this back on. And as soon as it starts bending is when I want to stop, because I don't want to get too hot and mess up anything. Maybe I need it hotter? Hold on. Moved, just see if that was enough. It's a little better. This one wasn't too bad though. I think that's a little bit better. The other one was definitely a little bit worse off. So let me see if I can get that other one. Yeah, that worked. That didn't work too well. All right, just kind of trying to not destroy everything. Could probably turn it up a little bit more. Like I said, I don't want to melt something I don't want melted. There it goes. Well, it has a little bit of memory. It moved back on me. So we'll just hold it like that. Now I've looked at, I was concerned that maybe I did this part wrong. So I looked at other images online. And I'm not the only one who had these that didn't look very good. Some were much better than mine. Most were better than mine. Mine was off quite a bit more than others I've seen. And at that point, I should probably get a longer hose. The problem is that hose is glued on back up inside there from the original builder. And I'm afraid if I try to pull the glue off, I might do more harm than good, maybe. I mean, it's on, but just barely. So that may have to be good enough for now. If it bugs me too much later, then I'll do more with it later. But for now, I'm going to call that done enough. But like I said, I may revisit that later. So let me clean this stuff up, and we'll get back to the next thing we need to work on. All right, so we're ready for this. I went ahead and put the seats in. Now the back seat comes out quite easily. I mean, it kind of just presses in place, but it does just come out. 2 pegs. Trying to get one so you can see it right there. And they go into the holes in the floor. Now that's got to come out because there's the battery tray right back here. Now, when you look in the instructions, the battery has a little holder, and I am missing that piece. And what I'll have to do is, I mean, it looks fairly simple. I could probably just make something. So I will have to find or make some other type of battery holder, find some other kind of battery. I've been thinking about just using like little button cells and maybe just putting LEDs for the headlights. That way I don't have to worry about the headlights burning out later. Haven't quite really thought about that yet. But since that's accessible, since I can get to that, and since I modified the seat rails, or the seat track, not the tracks, but the arms here, I can actually fold that forward, which the way the kit was designed, you couldn't really do that. So I've got pretty good access back here. So I can always put a battery tray or something in there later. These seats just kind of plug in, little posts go through the holes. When I first tried, they didn't fit. I had to open the holes up, just take an X-Acto blade, take a knife and just kind of round out the holes a little bit. But even after that, they were a nice tight press fit in, and I just put a little dot of solvent on those, just so they wouldn't fall out. I could still pop those out if I had to, but I shouldn't have to. So next step is to put this on the chassis. So let me pause it for a second. We'll get the chassis here, and we'll fit this down on top. Oh, 2 other things, or 1 other thing, but 2 of them. These pieces right here, leather covered, little piece of plastic, leather covered. And that just gets glued in to the side. 1 there, and of course 1 right over there. So let me get the chassis out. So, per the instructions, when that goes in, there's a screw and a washer that goes up through the bottom of the chassis and into fitting right under there. But first, we need to get this fit on here, which can be kind of a struggle. It's not impossible, obviously, but at the same time, it's not the easiest thing. You have to fit the park brake handle through the hole here and fit those around the pedals. And I still haven't cut this off yet. I'm kind of saving that. It just feels wrong to cut it right now. So that'll probably be one of the last things I do. So again, we can just pull that back and get that into the hole. And of course the pedals are in the way. Gently push those up. Get that underneath those. And actually that went easier than the last time I did it. And we're in. The pedals are still free to move. That one gets a little bit, oh, that's weird. There should be a spring to pull that back. Kind of, it just got a little bit, the others work a little bit better. So anyways, shifter's kind of centered. And so the 2 screws should come up from the bottom here. So I need to flip this whole thing upside down so I can put those screws in. So let me get back with you there in just a second. All right, so here's what I got. The car is upside down. I've got the front resting on a sponge with a cloth wrapped around it just to protect all of this stuff up front there. The back is just resting on a paper towel roll. Now the screws have to go, where's my pointer? Oh, this will work. The screws have to go down in, let me find one here. Where's the end of my pointer? Right there. So the screw goes in here and then through a matching hole in the interior tub. And there's another one that needs to go in right down there. Now, if I remember right, because I had that test fitted in before, those are a major pain in the butt to get in, because you can't see down there very well, let alone get a screw down in there with a screwdriver and then tighten it. So, and I know there's no way I'm going to be able to film doing that. So that's where the screws go. Of course, the first challenge is getting the screw holes to line up. But once you get those in, you just got to fiddle around with those little screws and a screwdriver till they're all in. And then we can flip this back over. Now the wiring for the battery, that's going to come in. Well, we can fish those in. It's going to be over back in here somewhere, but there's still access to get to that battery tray somewhere. That shouldn't be too bad. And we'll just kind of sneak the wires through for the lighting. But again, I'm not too concerned about that. We can do that at just about any time. But got the oil pan cover removed. That just snaps on in place. But just take this opportunity to get a nice view of the bottom of the model. And so yeah, it's I mean, it's getting along pretty well now. We're making pretty good progress now. Because again, after I get the screws in, I flip it back over. Now the body can go on. And after that, we just have the doors and the fender and the hood. And I'm not expecting all of that to fit well. But you never know. Might be surprised. I don't know if I showed this or not, but this is what I use to support the model. When it's right side up, I just 3D printed that. And that just goes on here. And there's some matching holes at the front, right, like that. So that's what I use just to hold the body up when it's right side up before I can get the wheels on. I don't know if I put that on Thingiverse or not. I probably didn't. I don't know. I mean, how many people really need that? Maybe I'll throw it on there just in case. But anyways, let me get the screws in and show you what it looks like after the screws. Well, it'll look like screws put in. You guys know what screws look like. So I'll put the screws in, I'll flip that back right side up, and then we'll start working on getting the body put on. All right, so I think I'm ready to put this on the chassis. Now I went ahead, I glued in that leather strip around here. Again, I can't put that top piece on just yet. I think the hardest thing that's going to be coming up is putting the screws in, one here, because those come in from the top down. And I don't know how they expect me to get a screwdriver in there. I'm going to have to cut a little short stubby screwdriver or something. So that's going to be not easy. So let me get the chassis over here. Let me just kind of put this out of the way. Find a spot for this. And we'll bring the chassis back over. Now this is screwed in. I put the screws in. Again, they go from the bottom up and had it upside down. So those screws are in. I did not use the screws that the kit calls for because, again, they were like little tiny machine threads. So I found a screw that has more of an aggressive thread that'll grab into the plastic better. Anytime I take something apart, like a radio or VCR or copier or printer or anything like that, I save all the hardware. And this stuff, you almost never use it, but when you do, it's definitely worth saving. All right, so when the body goes on, again, 2 screws go in here. See, one screw goes here, one goes here. It also screws in here, but that screw goes through the body and screws into the fender piece. So the body, where it attaches, one attachment is right here. This is part of the interior tub. Screw goes in here, and also a screw right here. So the body is going to be held on by 6 screws. But the first challenge is to get the body on here. And I can tell you right now, it does not fit very well, just because I trial fitted it before I painted it. And spread those apart there. And this is as wide as I can zoom. I can't really get out any further. So right now this is just kind of setting in place. It needs to go, actually, not too bad right there. That's kind of right where it needs to be. The front gets pulled down from the ones up front, the screw down here. And obviously that one's not lining up just yet. So this is going to take some time. Just tweaking, moving, fitting, pressing. What I will do is just clamp those two. Well, I'll probably put a temporary screw and a nut through here to hold that while I get these two screws. Let me just shift this back a little bit. So this is the game plan. I'll put some screws and nuts here to hold that together. And then I will put the screws into the front. Again, one goes right in here and one goes right over here. And then I will try to get the screws into the back here. And again, it's like straight down right here. So that's going to be quite difficult. So I won't have you suffer through watching me mess around with this. So I'll do that off camera, and I'll get back and show you what it looks like with all the screws in. Because like I said, I'm expecting that this is going to give me a headache for the next couple of hours trying to get these screws in. So get back to you here in just a second. All right, it's on. Wasn't as bad as I thought. Right now, I just have zip ties here because, again, once the fenders go on, screws will go up through the bottom, through those, and into the fenders. I've got the screw here and on each side, and that is the screw that the kit calls for. Now on the inside, again, the way I did the seats, I can fold those down, which really helped. And if we just fold that back, let me get a light in here. Get my free Harbor Freighter light set in there. And we can see in there the screws. Now those, again, it wasn't too bad because I was able to push the top back, and I just folded the top all the way back, and I could get a screwdriver in there. And I used a Phillips screw, and I had that pushed back a little bit further. So I could get a Phillips screwdriver in there to get those screws in. That would have been really difficult with a common blade screw head. So I used, again, from my scrounge of screws, I just found a couple of little ones that worked with Phillips heads. So now the next step is this will get glued in like so. It'll get glued in like that to clean up the back. It's kind of neaten up the back. I just think it looks better. And so I'll glue that in. And these pieces, hold on, turn that light off. These pieces right here, right there, get that in view. That goes inside, as we said before. I did put this one in temporarily. It does fit. So it's just a matter of putting it in with some glue, and those will be done. So I'm going to end this one here because I have a feeling that this one is getting to be quite long. So I'm going to end this one here, and off camera I'll just glue those last few pieces in, like I said. And the next step will be fitting the doors. Now I did test fit the hood panels back on. They do fit. Let me just throw those on real quick. All right. They will need a little bit more fine trimming. A little bit more fine fitment and trimming. But they still fit fairly well. Not perfect yet, but they will. So a little bit of trimming here and then paint. That'll be a different video. But next video, the next one I put out, will be fitting the doors. Getting the interior and exterior door panels together, getting the handles, the window handles and latches in, and then fitting the doors. And that'll be probably its own video. And then the hood and the fenders and the lights, little metal pieces. Yeah, we're looking pretty good. And one thing, this does still fit, but just barely. Get that in view. So trying to get back and try to hold that. It won't rest on there on its own. It will just fall down. But like I said, I'm going to cut a piece of like craft foam to fit in the inside there to give us some support. And that'll fit right on top of those windshield panels. Just barely. It almost didn't reach. I was getting a little bit nervous. But I'm 99% positive that the guy I'm making this for is just going to have it all folded back and won't even have it up like that. So it probably won't matter either way. I still need to make the straps that hold the top back. That shouldn't be a big deal. That could even be the very last thing I do. But anyways, I'm going to end it here because I'm rambling. I'm repeating myself. So yeah, I can almost see the finish line. I think the doors are going to be the next hardest part. The rest should just be painting, polishing, painting, assembly work. Yeah, I'm kind of getting excited to get this thing done and out of here and in my friend's house so I can start my next project. Anyways, like I said before already, I'm going to stop rambling. I'm going to stop talking. So, as always, thanks for watching.